Well, we need a motion to come back from recess.
I'll make a motion to come back to recess.
Second. Commissioner Stirk has a second. All in favor, aye. Okay, that's gonna bring us back into the workshop. And that being said, I don't know what the next order of conversation is. Men, y'all may have some thoughts or ideas.
How about if we look at the hospital stuff?
Okay.
She has some numbers, audited numbers from last year, what she was. what
I
they
did
were.
get another check on my desk while I was gone. Y'all did look.
That's for this year though, right?
Yes, that's for this year. Yeah, that ship has sailed. This right here is for the last audit.
Okay.
And I have, our financial report, if y'all need it, shows all these things. And I also looked at the tax rate. We, of course, we give the no new revenue.
Yeah.
So our tax rate actually went down last year. And I didn't make several copies because I figured y'all had it. But this is 2021 right here.
Okay.
It shows. Goes all the way down. Yeah, this is for.
You said center, I don't know what that is.
Sorry. You have a copy of that?
Somebody in there we know? Are you in there? Is there something in there you need to read? So I would, on the hospital, y'all had a deficit of 288 on that. I would like to see us, the county and the people, cover that indigent care rate. And I know y'all have been paying out of your other fund for a while to cover that. You hadn't asked the county for an increase.
The way the rule is written is that we can use a percentage of the tax dollars that we have run the hospital. But since 2018, we've not had to do that. We put all that money towards the medically and financially indigent.
Okay.
Hope we don't have to. I hope we continue to do this and put it back out to the people, because a lot of the times, even the insured are now qualifying for the medically and financially indigent, because they're such high deductible points, and they can't meet those plans, and so they're qualifying.
Okay. So I'd like to see, and I don't know who would figure this, what the rate would be to increase that hospital tax rate to cover the previous year's deficit of 288, at least that much to see. We don't know what this year's is because y'all are still still operating, but
Would we be able to offset it without having to go up on the rate with the ARPA monies?
I don't know if I guess we probably could. I don't know if ARPA will cover. I guess we can.
We can
Indigent
pay
healthcare.
for the excessive contract costs, the contract costs.
ARPA did cover our contractors, and which y'all will have another report due in September. I'm not sure about using the ARPA money related to indigent care that is already encumbered by the county. I don't know what the rule is about that.
I know if you don't have a hospital district, there's a minimum amount of money, minimum percentage of your salary of your budget that has to go to indigent care. You at least have to put that much in there towards it. So I'm not sure. I know that that's a special fund. I'd have to look at that and see if it's allowable to happen. So
If that's an option, Steve, it could be something that instead of making the adjustment for the tax rate, it could be just zeroed out and written off. Because I think one of the options that I recall from the seminars on the ARPA is that it could literally just be rolled right into the general fund of the county.
Right, I'm not sure if we can take the general fund money and pay it another fund. I guess we can do another fund. I don't know, I'd have to look into that to see that. That indigent care hospital district stuff is, there's a whole statute on that, so. It's possible, I would think. But next year, if you don't go up on the rate next year, this year, then next year, if it's at 500,000, where are you gonna go to there, you know? She's already, right now, unaudited, you're at what, 370 something?
I'm at 384, but those are unaudited
Right.
numbers.
So, and she's still got money coming in, she's just got some money coming in. We won't know those numbers until after we're through here.
Audited numbers won't come in until November.
So whatever, I would just like to see how much we'd have to go up, Jackie and Lynette, maybe to get out of that hospital taxing number, and I don't know what that is, hospital district taxing number, to get 288,000 more. So right now, at the no new revenue rate, it's at 0.2133. Is that correct, Sandra? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
this year's, we went down last year because we kept the no
Right.
revenue, and it was 0.2133.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have a sheet on the hospital.
I haven't been able to figure it yet.
Okay,
I pulled that off of, the appraisal district. that
Okay.
Chart I gave you.
so anyways, that's kind of what I would like to see on our proposed rate on that, is to cover that cost.
So are you going to check into the possibility of there being an option to offset it with ARPA?
Yeah, I think we need to look into it, see,
Check that out, yeah. See,
instead of adding to the tax rate.
just remember that you don't have a bigger deficit next year when it comes around.
So
More than likely.
Is it trending that it's going up every year, the charity care?
Well, it trends to the need in your county, and that need in Tyler County is pretty significant.
So y'all been paying out of it since 2018, is that right?
All I can speak to is 2018 and forward. You can see the tax rate. All I can really speak to is 2018 and to present day. And yes, it's been trending up.
And you've been in a deficit since then, each year?
We have been in the deficit.
Okay. That
As
deficit
far
keeps
as
getting bigger and
indigent
bigger.
care, you're always going to be in a deficit because it's not just indigent care as we used to know it. Now you're medically and financially indigent. And I told y'all about this last year. You could have a significant ER visit, and even though you don't meet the indigent care qualifications, you have become medically indigent because you just had a $6,000 ER bill.
Yeah.
Whereas if you could maintain your health and go to the clinic at $25 or $50 or $100, you don't qualify under those indigent care strategies. But you have an MI or something else, then that moves you over into the medically indigent, which trumps your financially indigent now.
Right.
So, and that community, those people, we can't ignore. Those are our responsibility.
And a lot of those people, you don't know that they're indigent at the time of that, when later on is when that comes to, right?
Right, and in your very first number where it says bad debt and uncollected,
Mhm.
that's your 20%. That's your 20% that fall into that category, and that's a state rule. That's your 20%.
Okay.
You know every year that all I can claim under indigent care is 20% of that total. So we know what that's gonna be. Under the charity care, that's straight up indigent as we used to know it. Under the other deductions, that is based on state program, it's called the Medicaid expansion program. You know, we did not expand Medicaid in the state of Texas. So those people that would have qualified for Medicaid, we have an obligation. So that number changes from year to year. Last year, it was $680,000. That was our responsibility. If we expanded Medicaid, other programs would go away. If we don't, that's not a local decision.
Right,
The
but it
expansion
affects us
of Medicaid,
locally, it's not.
that is not a local decision,
But it affects us
but
locally
it affects us
financially.
out of our responsibility.
So, in preparation for what your point is, Commissioner, is that if we can address this with ARPA, that will take off last year. And
Yes,
then if we can use that as an estimate on how much of an increase, so that there won't be a deficit next year as opposed to.
Less of it.
Correct. As opposed to twice that amount.
The
So,
curve get bigger and bigger.
right. And since we have a legal responsibility to provide for that, if we don't make that adjustment, it's just gonna get,
Bigger.
so that may be a
I
way
won't look at
that,
that.
you know, can be approached.
So whoever can figure that tax rate. I can't figure that
also, I know you can see, we didn't quite collect the 94% for the hospital district. The collection, we should have collected $2,805,000, and we were not quite there. That number is on the last line. We didn't quite make it there, and I don't think we'll quite make it there this year.
So what you did collect is the 2,749,000.
Yes,
That,
that's
and
all.
that's year to date, right?
Those are.
Well, that's a whole year, that's audited numbers right
Yeah,
there.
that's last
So
year's.
the current year that we're in they're just now starting, they're starting the preliminary. I won't know that until November.
Sure.
GSD.
Okay, so are y'all comfortable that we're addressing what both the deficit was as well as the future need of, or current, maybe? Okay.
Will somebody figure that for us? On the hospital rate, to increase it by 288,000, the rate, we don't figure it now. We just need, we want to increase the collection of the hospital tax by $288,000. So we don't need to know what that rate's going to go up to increase that collection by that much.
2 cents.
Yeah.
Well, because I think they're not on the same, everything's not, it's a little bit different numbers, I think, so.
I don't do anything with the hospital. I've never done anything.
I'm not sure what property is counted in hospital or not.
David, can you speak to that?
The numbers.
The numbers for the hospital,
Is the hospital, taxable value 1,378,570,022, or is there a different number for
There's
that?
a different one for the hospital than it is the regular.
I think that was on the papers I gave you this morning.
Yeah, that should be free.
The value,
Yeah.
yeah, I live with the rate.
Yeah, it's on this second.
Okay,
Which one is it?
That's for the appraisal district's budget, and that gives you all the certified balance.
While I'm looking, there is one well that'll be added this year. About $8 million.
Good job. Look some more.
Walk out and back in another one.
We'll allow you to leave.
Yes. Thank you.
We gotta go sign some stuff in Donnie's office. That's our supply. Get on us about that.
What?
Need to get on us about that.
I don't know.
I did.
This,
So,
that guy's not breathing down my neck.
Yeah, this is right.
He calls it ready, I'm so sorry.
So did all the dates get figured out as far as when we need to do what we need to do?
That's why I posted a special call meeting for the proposed rate. I wish you didn't advertise, because you advertise after they set the proposed rate, correct?
Okay, it looks like the next item in the outline is for the TCDRS plan on page 5. And Ralph said that y'all had talked and he is giving you these documents, I guess, whenever.
yeah, where's that?
Right
Page
behind
5, it's right
adoption.
behind all that tax information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I talked to Ralph about an increase on a COLA. But I don't know if we'll be able to afford that or not. We can go in, and what that does is increase the people that are already retired, gives them an increase on their retirement. We can go anywhere from 1% to 7%, anywhere in there. And it was about 178,000, I believe. Isn't that right? Do you remember what the number was for 1%? Terry and I had looked at the number.
What'd you say that it was?
1%, well, 170,000, is it? Yeah, somewhere around that was for a 1%, but that would be for them, to cover them, everybody that's already retired, it would be affecting them. Anybody retiring at the end of the year or now, after this is done, would not be affected by that 1% rate. They would not get an increase in the cost of living rate. So but on just the regular plan, what we're paying now, did it go up, Jackie?
It went down.
Went down.
They're paying 8.52, which one the required rate now is.
720. So we're still pretty good, percent funded. At that rate would be the 100% fund, 100.3%, right? Funded ratio down at the bottom.
Correct.
Left, next, the valuation of December, the bottom green line, bottom chart, right?
Right there?
Yeah, what's the very bottom thing? Funded ratio, 100.3%.
It was
Right.
117.
117. Okay. So 117,000 would cover 1% increase for the retirees, and it pretty much 2%, you double that for, and it's not exact, but that's about what it would do for the retirees that are out there right now. 2009, I believe, was the last time that we had But the county had given an increase to that, so. Yeah, last COLA 2009, yeah. Anyway, we have a pretty good, on our retirement, we're funded pretty good, right at 100%, and the court did something back in 16 or 17, put some, had some excess, put in there, which helped us a whole lot, helped that fund a whole lot. So I would, we've always gone a little bit above the required rate just to keep something major from happening to the stock market. I think that's what happened back then, was something happened, a big downfall. Yeah, they come up with some money, but it's funded pretty good right now. And I would caution to watch that every year to make sure we're staying around 100%. So, you remember what the number was of how many of their entities were 100% funded? There wasn't a whole lot of them. So, you know, anyway, the required rate 7.20. So we reduced some down there, and I would like to at least look at helping the retired people out. It's been 14 years since they've had any increase. At least give them a percent, which costs $117,000, $118,000.
Okay, you've heard the suggestion, just for conversation. Any additional thoughts or comments? Okay, so Stephen, your recommendation is a 1% increase above the current 7.2%.
No. My recommendation is a 1% increase for the retirees for the COLA.
Okay,
Give them a 1% increase.
so,
I think we're good at 7.20.
but how would we fund the 1%? Would it,
No,
Go to-
that's a one-time payment that we put into the retirement system.
okay,
So that had to be put into our general fund budget to be transferred over there today.
okay,
The 7.20 is our current.
correct,
What's where we're, no, I recommend we stay there because we're 100%,
right.
a little over 100%. We don't get much over 100%. So my recommendation is let's help our retirees out by at least give them 1%, which costs us about $118,000 one-time payment.
Okay,
And that wouldn't affect you or I if we retire. It's affect people that already have retired. So
okay.
we wouldn't benefit from that.
All right. Anything further on the TCDRS plan for conversation? All right, that'll take us to the certified property estimate. David, have you found what you were looking for on the hospital?
Oh, you're asking me?
Have you found what
It's
you?
about the same.
Oh,
It's
okay.
about the same.
So we're going to page 8, and that'll be the certified property estimates, general and county. David is present with us to discuss. We were looking at those earlier this morning. All right, comments?
All the insurance and stuff that I have in there, y'all have already approved all of that, so the next page really for new information is page 97 for the software. And for district clerk, VA, justice, the fees, law enforcement, e-files, just.
On the insurance, we already approved that, right? But we still have to fund that increase, right? In this, but we're going to fund the increase in that insurance,
Oh, yeah.
which is about $38,000 a year increase in that.
You say page 97?
Yeah,
That's the one that's got the green? Yes. I missed that.
that's the software for net, through net data.
Mhm.
It's been a big headache for e-file, for clerks, for in the legislature last year, they did all the changes of fees, and they appealed some fees, and then we have new fees, and some of the fees that I would typically send to the state now goes directly to them. So they don't pass through us anymore. So you'll see revenue line items in the draft budget that show zero because we don't have them, and we had to put them in a liability when we come into that compliance with that SBA 84. So that's why you don't see them, because that money is money we collect for the state, and we send to them. We get a service fee of 10%,
Yeah. Going back to that.
but that's why everything is going up.
So are these, the estimate, is that including the increase or the estimated increase that you see here?
This is what their letter said. This is what the term is gonna be.
Yeah.
This is,
So what I would want to know is that how much increase, I don't know how much we need to increase our budget to cover that estimated increase. Do you have any idea?
Renee, have you gonna get integrated or this year, next year?
Well, when I talked to them, they said it'd be the end of this year. So,
Cause this estimate doesn't include hers.
but it's probably the same as the counterpart one. Called those people about called that day, and I called back, put in the tickets, and I'm finally getting little updates in there. For the longest, I couldn't find out nothing. Like I said, I haven't said.
David, we skipped over the proposed budget for the appraisal district. We'll come back to it. Stay.
That's why he's here. Jackie, I came up with a round figure of 167 for the estimate of all these. I didn't know what we had scheduled in our current budget to cover that, so.
So that's something that- but only the- but only the school can give it that system. There's one.
David, while that's being calculated in a figure for budget increase, if you want to go ahead and start to talk to us about the proposed budget for the present.
Sure. I don't have a copy of it.
Page
Take it out of this thing, Dave.
25.
Or did I give you the wrong one?
It starts off highlighted on, starting out with payroll costs. And it goes on for another page after that. And then page after that, we're required to list the position, by position and benefits that are reporting. And then the last page shows how much each entity might have to pay. I want to start with that last page, if that's okay.
Sure.
For something significant to come out. These are estimated 2022 tax levies based on the best guess that we could at the time. Woodville School District is going to levy their bond tax this year. And it's going to be a good hunk of money. So when we substitute whatever it is that they end up levying, that's going to make everybody else go down. It's going to make them pay a larger percentage of everybody else go down. I don't know to what extent, but they're talking about a 46-cent bond tax, primary tax. That goes out on the bills, it's going to be pretty sizable. So they'll see a big increase, everybody else will share in the decrease. That's pretty significant in what I've actually got shown. The budget pretty much stays the same. I moved some things around. The salaries are based on a 7% increase, but the salaries, it's not allocated to that. You go down to the bottom of the salary page. There's a 7% COLA, a line item. And it's not distributed among any employees. It's calculated based on everybody except for me. I didn't didn't have a budget that's for me. But everybody would get 7%. The board has to come back and, because it's a separate line item, the board would have to come back at the end of the year and say, yes, we're gonna do it, or some percentage of it, or part of it, or none of it. So it's not assigned out to any positions yet. Our insurance is going up pretty much like everybody. Our contribution to the retirement system actually went down a little bit, but I suspect that everybody's got similar kind of adjustment to TCDRS. The audit expense is going up. Legal expense, we're hoping that we might not be spending a whole lot out of that. The delinquent tax law firm at Weingarten, collect those taxes, and most everybody else, I think, in the county. They've made arrangements with a law firm that we could do a retainer with a law firm. The delinquent tax lawyers will pay them. We won't have to pay it at all. So if there's any legal opinions and things like that we need to ask questions about, we can do that, not be charged for it. So kind of excited about that. Contract services is showing an increase from 32,000 to 87,000.
Wow.
But as we go through the rest of the budget, you can see where we just decreases. So we'll come back to that. But what's in there is the forestry contract with Parker Forestry that does our timber typing. Looks at it and tells us what kind of timber is there and so forth. Mail service, it's a company called Bearbird. All of our mailings that we have to make, appraisal notices, the postcards we just sent out, all that's done on a contract basis. So I moved it, we had part of it in postage, part of it in printing, couldn't really tell. It was one job, so we moved it all to the service expense. Eagle View Pictometry is the aerial photography that we share the cost with DETCOG and the 911. We pay half, they pay half. The TransUnion sales is brand new, something we're trying. Texas is a non-disclosure state as far as getting copies of sales of houses. And multiple listing service is pretty much not letting anybody across the state get into it as well. TransUnion is the credit bureau, credit company. They have access to that information and they are selling it to anybody who wants to buy it, I guess. We have to sign a contract, but unfortunately, it's 50 cents per sale, which is not bad. Our minimum of $5,000. So there's like 200-300 sales that we would get. So we're gonna try it and see if it's worth that kind of money to get those 200-300 sales. Only reason I bring that up is because the state does come in and audit our work to see how close to market value we really are. If we can't get a hold of the data, then we fail. We don't want to do that.
Can the state see that data? The people auditing you, do they know what that data is?
In the past, they've been getting it, but they've been kicked out too.
So they're right to buy it also.
Yeah, I don't know if they get 5,000 for the entire state, but 5,000. I had to send them the
Number.
FIPS, I think, code. It's a county code that's known for this county nationally.
220.
Send that to them. I tried to cheat, see if I could get all the Wildwood. They would let me. Capital Appraisal Group is a company that appraises all the industrial pipelines, not railroads. Telephone systems, electric companies, the pellet mill, all those, their contracts pretty much stayed the same for the last few years. Board of Director expense is $2,000. They haven't been buying anything or going anywhere, so that 2,000 pretty much hasn't been spent. The ARB expense, that's the review board. We increased that amount from 8,000 to 12,000. We were short this past year, so we needed to bump it up to make sure we cover the number of days to have those meetings. Equipment maintenance is software contract and the equipment that we have, repairs, janitorial, pretty much all the way down is pretty much the same. The next page is our office and computer supplies. You'll see postage and freight a huge decrease from 18,000 to 8,000. Part of that went to that other category. Same thing with training, it went to zero, 8,200 before, now it's zero. Auto mileage, we've increased, we're still debating on how to compensate employees that are out in the field for their fuel costs. And we don't know if we should do a supplemental per mile basis on that, that's still kind of up in the air, how we're gonna handle that. Our insurance is going up a little bit. banking fees, credit card fees are, more than what we've had in the past, more than $500. Dues and subscriptions, that would be to subscribe to the costs, residential cost manuals and commercial cost manuals that we use, and also any associations that we belong to. Seminars in schools would be the education. I lost a couple of employees, trained employees, licensed employees earlier this year. So we're basically taking some people on the bottom end and training them up. Unfortunately, it's what happens in a lot of rural counties. So we're increasing the education expense because of that. And then the furniture and equipment, that's where we had paid pictometry out of, the RFP people out of before. That's been moved to the service category. So it went down from 30,000 to the overall, after everything, went up from 1,103,700 to 1,226,980.
All right, questions for David? You've got the proposal for the salaries increase, but that's dependent upon board decision, true?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I've always done.
Yeah.
We've never took advantage to try to allocate it to ourselves.
Got it.
And we just asked the board to consider it again. The reason I did that, we used to tie it to Social Security, and that's usually not announced until October, what Social Security recipients would get. So that's kind of the way we do it. We can come back after that and then consider. Also, it came up at the last meeting, I'm pretty sure, to be mindful of what other people in the entire county are getting, whether or not you are getting increases or, other people. Because it's kind of, it can be kind of bittersweet for y'all to be paying our budget and then we get increase and nobody else does.
Do you know what our, the 2022 assessment was on our part? Estimated 2023 is 478,553.
I do not have.
Okay.
Jeff, can I ask a question?
Sure.
And it's on the appraisal district board. Do you know?
David, you want to address that? Mike, you are.
Who's on the appraisal district board?
Who's on it?
Yes, sir.
The board of directors is, Manette, Mike Marshall,
Gil,
the
Kathy.
mayor of Ivanhoe,
Kathy,
Kathy Bennett.
Kathy Bennett,
Gil,
Amy from the city.
And you bought
Gil Tubb. I can get you the.
It's on the website. You can find it on their website.
Billy
You can
Reed.
dig around on it.
Billy Reed's Warren, and Dale Kramer is Chester. I can't remember, Burke. Yeah, Burke or something like that. What's his name?
Burger is, Brent Martin.
Brent Martin. So I just wanted to say.
And whatever comment I might make, I noticed a good match for the appraisal, is not what the match is for the county employees. The also match is 2.25. Is that correct? And the county's is 2.0.
2.0.
And the appraisal district is 2.25.
And you have to look at, some of those places are not paying Social Security. So they go
The
up.
appraisal district, they are.
I don't know, but that's what I was explaining to at retirement, that those places where you see paying more, they might not be paying on the Social Security
How much
side.
do you know, do they?
We're not.
Okay,
So they don't have that benefit when they retire. They won't get the Social Security.
Correct that. We, by law, we have to do the Medicare part.
Okay, not the.
Yeah, not the Social Security.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't relay that to you.
That's okay.
That's how much the increase is.
All right. David, anything else for the appraisal district?
What we paid for.
All right.
For this year.
We've discussed the dental quote. We've got that figured out. That was made formally at a meeting previously. Unemployment rate, I guess, is the next thing.
The appraisal district increase on our assessment is 48,000 more from last year. Isn't that right, Jackie? Yeah.
Okay, thank you,
You want to put that on here.
thank you.
So that's a new one?
And the dental quote, Leanne, was around 30,000, isn't that correct?
Okay.
We pay for them.
The dental doesn't cost that.
Yeah, the county doesn't pay for them. That's the employee.
They only play the vision.
Okay. Unemployment rate, oh, it's page
That's a
60.
well, David was telling us this morning, it might be coming on too. He said it is.
Yeah, I told him go find
The
another.
value's like 8 to 9 million.
Yeah. David, Dave, the board now is selected by the district judge, right? We used to select.
The review board.
The review board, okay.
Back in the early days of the appraisal district, the state had a structure on how the board would be appointed. And it would be based on each entity's share of the total taxes that were given. They also gave the local governments the opportunity to decide for themselves how they wanted to do it. Well, there were 7 entities, 2 cities, well, 1 city, 5 schools, and the county. And y'all could have voted and had one have better strength than the other. And apparently back then they decided we're just gonna let every entity have 1 member. So that ended up, they decided, so the county appoints somebody, Cole Middle School appoints somebody, Chester appoints somebody, and that's the way it's done.
City of Woodville.
Now, the appraisal review board, the one that listens to the protest, they are now appointed by the district judge.
Okay.
That was last year. Last year when they started that. Was it last year that they started that?
Yeah,
21.
and we don't have anybody consulting on that. Anybody got ideas, send them to.
Don't the review board.
Judge,
For the
we
review
get
board.
water.
All right. Moving right along, workers' compensation. Looks like it's on page 63.
Nothing is a 5% increase.
%5.
Be equivalent to 64,000 roughly.
Is the bill sheet that you have there is this year's rates? They usually send a letter, but for whatever reason, they've had a turnover and they just told them it's 5%. I don't have anything from them specifically.
So you kind of figured it 63,000, from 60,757 to 63,795, 5%.
Yeah. 3,000. All right. Anything further on that? And that'll take us to public officials and law enforcement liability changes, page 66.
It's just informational. And Stephen, you asked what the increase for that data is, it's 13,285.
So net data It's an estimated $13,000 increase.
Well, that's just on the software, there's a
Yeah.
different, there's a soft, they put, say both of them soft, I don't know why they divided RBI, but they did.
But on the big page.
But on the big page, what our big fee that we usually pay is, it's that much more.
All right. So that'll take us to our JP budget request on page 101. And judges here, looks like signatures of all 4 judges have signed off on that request for additional increase in travel allowance of $50 per month for each, a total of $600 per year, and a total impact to the bottom line on the budget, $2,400. You're marking. All right. Well, Sheriff, good news. We've finally gotten to you. Page 102.
Did Judge Ford not have anything to say?
Yeah, she was pretty plain in what she wrote down. It was pretty,
I explained it very well.
right. We didn't hear any hollering out of it, so I guess we got the numbers right.
Well, Judge, thank you. I didn't get to hear the sheriff speak today. I didn't know we could speak this early in the stage. Mr. Luker, he hit on a good point earlier, David did, about the availability to hire and attract in rural areas. And you've got a letter that I sent. I think all of you probably have a copy of it in front of you. And I just want to hit on it a little bit. Kind of get to the elephant in the room, I'm sure, opened up some other doors. We've heard mention of types of raises that the county may be looking at, different individuals. And I come before you today as the sheriff, and totally as the sheriff, and speaking for my department. And of course, as we come here today, first of all, I'm very blessed, our department is very blessed with the funds that have been allotted and allocated in the past few years, as far as whether it be through office supplies, equipment. I tell new applicants when I hire them, you're going to be provided with the very best law enforcement equipment available. And if you don't believe me, you contact the police chief of Silsbee, you contact the police chief of Woodville, Lumberton, police chief of Beaumont, Hardin County Sheriff. The Lumberton police chief loves us. He loves the way, and he loves the people that I hire, and he loves the way they're trained. And after a year and a half, I'm getting, there's nothing I can do about it. They love us. They love the way we're structured. So, yeah, and yeah. I mean, we are a training machine, not Calhoun, we train an individual. We're just at a point in law enforcement where you got in this letter that I just want us to be able to remain some type of competitive. I know that we're not going to be able to necessarily get on the playing field and be competitive with these other agencies, especially your municipal agencies that draw from, not only from a little different tax bracket, if you will, but they don't have the number of officers that we need. When you're having to cover 4 square miles, I miss my calling, Mike. I've got 944 square miles that I'm responsible for, and these guys are responsible for. And that takes numbers. It really does. And I brought that up earlier about the proposed budget. I know the treasurer has worked on something. It was just really where I was looking down at it, and I was strictly looking at it from the standpoint of personnel and what we've got, the dedication that we've got, not only within law enforcement, our county officials dedicated, all the way around. Renee commented on it last week, and hit on that point of, you have generations of individuals that are, that come and, I say come and go, they spend their whole career doing that, and that's what they choose. And we know that we do that by choice. But with law enforcement, we're getting to a point where the ability, I'll say this, I said this the other night in a meeting, with the Lions Club. The demand for good qualified law enforcement, and when I say law enforcement, believe me, I'm talking about the jails, the dispatch communication, as well as your patrol officers, from top to bottom. The demand for those has never been higher in our nation. The supply has never been lower. And man, I just love Terry Allen. I've got this magazine that was on my desk yesterday, and I have not opened it up. And this is our Texas Association County Magazine, publication, Texas County Association, summer 22. Page 24 has sheriff staff shortages. I'm not the only ones that are doing it. Those same guys that we're talking about that I called off. I didn't even mention my counterparts in Polk County, Angelina County, and Jasper County. I'm going the wrong way. But here in our very county article magazine, law enforcement shortage in Texas has reached a crisis level, sheriffs say. This is the Polk County Sheriff, my good friend Byron Lyons, out to our west. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this just so it can sink in that. And I had no idea, again, I have not, this is the first time I've seen this. In nearly every county, the situation is the same. Sheriff's officers are struggling to keep deputies on the streets and jailers in their jails. A crisis in law enforcement that mirrors a trend nationwide. This year in Polk County, north of Houston, Sheriff Byron Lyons lost 3 deputies in 1 week. One who went to work for the city police force and another to Walmart. In his 20 years with the sheriff's office, the current shortage is the worst it has ever been. This is him, I quote Sheriff Lyons, "I know that me being shorthanded is not a problem exclusively for me," Lyons said. "There are agencies in the entire state and nation that are struggling to find officers. We're all struggling the same." And of course, sheriffs, he cited this several reasons, which is true, losing deputies and jailers, low pay, long hours, dangers on the job, but most notably, the villainization of law enforcement. Of course, that has been deteriorating over the past few years, and we've tried to do better. And I'll end with retired Nacogdoches Sheriff Thomas Curtis, who is now with the Texas Association of Counties as a law enforcement representative. And he's quoted by saying, "More and more over the time, the role of county jailer is not just secure the jail, but to try to monitor mental health concerns, people in crisis and really shouldn't be in jail. But jails are the only facilities that typically can't say no." And he goes on to say that, "I don't know that money would fix the problem, but it's going to get to the point that that's going to be the only draw for individuals to take this job." And we see that. My son is a state trooper with the Department of Public Safety. He's been on there for 5 years now. The Department of Public Safety troopers now, when they come out, their entry level is somewhere between 75 and 85,000 when they first come out. And I say all that, we're never going to get to that point. I got that. If you'll notice, the Department of Public Safety is going around to each region of the state, and they're having to recruit. They can't have an academy because they can't fill it with personnel. They're 400 troopers short right now. And they predict after September 1st in retirement, they'll be around 700. Nobody wants to do this job. So I come before you today with the fact that if we don't continue to see some type of monetary increase, incentive to not only really retain, but to attract as well, I think we've been able to attract, if you will, but the ability to be able to keep them is something I think we've got to really look at. And again, money is the root of all evil, but money's the reason why we do what we do. We have to be able to provide for our families. And you know, when I talk about, we hear of percentage raises, we hear of entry level, whether there be a discrepancy that this percent, that percent should be more. I remind my kids, all three of them, they're very successful, very successful. I'm bragging, Judge, they are. They're very successful. But I remind them when things don't go their way that when their mother and I were raising them, I remember clear as day, Judge, when I first started out, I was bringing $497 every 2 weeks home. They were on Medicare, we were on food stamps. That's the way we raised them. I started at the very bottom. I just didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden I'm the sheriff of this county. No more so than the judge woke up, he's county judge, or your county commissioner. There's a place you have to, it's not a pecking order, it's a place of beginning and end. And I just think that's something that we have to, the commitment that is shown throughout this county with our county employees, I think that's something that we've got to work to not only reward, but just maintain our quality of service. We talk about it all the time, Judge, quality of service. What service do we want to provide? What service do we want the law enforcement to provide? Our county commissioners, our judges. I mean, and Sandra knows this. She's going through the same thing with nurses. Nobody wants to be in law enforcement. Nobody wants to be an educator. And nobody wants to be in the healthcare field unless you pay. That's the only way that, you know, and like I said, I hate that, again, we're never going to be the Department of Public Safety. We're not going to be Hardin County, Angelina County. These issues are all, you know, they're all separate, but at the same time, Sheriff Lyons is going to be, he's chomping at the bit, wait to see who the next one I get trained up. And, you know, Chief Danny Sullivan, I'm telling you, I get a Christmas card every year from Danny. Who's next? It's a running joke we have, but there's nothing I can do about it. You're gonna see even more. We talk about the bonds at the city of Woodville. You talk about all of our schools, where school safety is a big thing right now. You're gonna have those schools that are gonna start paying. They're gonna start paying for those resource officers, and where do you think they're gonna get them from? They're gonna get them from the ones Don Calhoun is trying. So we just got to somehow try to remain competitive in that.
Let Don quit training them and doing such a good job. They won't be so marketable.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and he's got over 20 years. You know, you see that with the, you know, the numbers. And you've got that, the one that Leanne worked on, and that's what I like about it. You read it, you see the commitment right there of the individuals that are here. And yeah, those entry level people, God love them. They want to be a part of our team too. They want to be a part of our team too, and they should.
How many employees do you have full-time?
32 full-time.
Well,
Well, right now,
how many positions do you have full-time?
yeah, 32. You've got, right now, we see a three position shortage at the moment.
But that 32 includes those empty positions.
That will include those positions too, yes, sir. I'm just gonna have to run out of that, but yes.
So Sheriff, are you proposing or requesting or?
Yes, I'm sorry, Judge. Yes, I have, and what I have, and I put that in there is, $3,000 across the board, yes, for law enforcement personnel.
All right.
Does that include you in that 32?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Somebody's got to lead these people.
That's 96,000 total impact to the bottom line. If we're keeping running amounts. Thank you. Sheriff, anything
Thank you,
additional?
Judge. No, sir, what is that when the defense attorney say, I would come back?
You
at
rest?
another time?
You raised.
No, if I don't want to rest, I'm gonna come back later.
Yeah, I reserved. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all know.
Reserve the right to tell us what to say.
Thank you.
Judge is not gonna grant that.
Yeah, I know.
Say your piece and you're done.
Okay, questions or comments for the sheriff?
Judge, what figure did you come up with?
96.
96,000.
Okay.
I have in your table of contents that Renee has a
Don't you
request
figure
and
it's
I already printed when
We do.
I got it.
In our office.
Salary.
So she wants to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about it.
So it's about 121.65.
I don't think those got all three of them together.
Right. Yeah, because you're paying the contribution to social security and the 14%.
Well, it's 7%.
Yeah, all the way out to the town.
So the employee pays 7, so the county pays 6.
No, the county pays.
And
You pay 2 times.
But it's, they're 7, so the county only pays a payment of 4.
Is it on the right hand side?
But it's only cost the county 7%.
Antioch.
Antioch Road, where's that?
I figured it 8. Are you sure?
Yeah, so there's only, we don't write a check to social security, the county does.
Oh, right, I know.
But it's including our 7%.
Antioch
county.
Cemetery.
Is that right, Jack?
Well, the total impact is 21.65.
It's 7.65 for social security and Medicare.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Required rate of retirement is
Oh, just social security. So,
Social
The
security,
Pope Mill Road.
one of them's
Yeah.
1.45 and the other one's 5.
Yeah, okay.
But it, both together is
That's not-
7.65 that we send in.
So that's the county's part, and the employee pays 7%.
The employee pays the exact same,
But we write the check to social security.
because they still have social security withheld, we have to match what's withheld.
Right? We don't pay 21% to social, we pay 14%, we pay 7% to the employee. We just write the check for the employee.
Yeah.
That's how Medicare gets their money, social security, the county writes a check on their 7%. And then we match that, the county, because the county costs.
We send in what we deduct from them, plus what we
Right,
have to.
which equals 15%.
I was saying that in addition to the TCDRS contribution. The employee puts in 7%, the county matches it 2 times, so that's 14.
Yeah, but
14.
But it's not costing us 7, it costs us
7.25 because of the pool.
Because because of what, how we funded and what's in the pool, we're only having to pay 7 point, that's what we set our budget on, 7.2%.
Right, and because we're 100% funded.
Well,
Yeah,
and
you know,
because
the-
people that quit, they can, and they draw their money out, they get what they put in, but they don't get what we
Right.
put.
Stays-
Yeah. The only time they get that is if they started doing it.
18%, I can't, 115%.
So with the liabilities on the sheriff, it would be about $115,000 total, right? That's what Joe came up, the 96 plus the percentage.
I said,
All right. Let's see. We've already addressed the Aflac dental. We already said that. We'd addressed the TAC dental, now we've addressed it. So,
Right.
I don't have a document for emergency management. There's no increase, but there's some line item transfers, just moving $4,000 around, $3,000 out of one, $4,000 out of one and dividing it into 2 other line items, but no increase. So there's no bottom line. Yeah,
Just readjusting your line.
correct.
And, I had thought about bringing up business services for more money to the drivers, but, it looks like we may be able to get some funding from DECOG, through a grant, so I'll hold off on that for now.
All right.
But, also, we probably need to take a look at the proposed raises. Some within the budget, I think y'all might have
I don't think.
got some,
The 2,000 increase, annual increase. was
All right.
figured in with the last year. But don't forget tonight, maybe go to talk to you.
Yes.
I'm just about old paper. Now, I have 4 different things here. I have I don't know if y'all want these, but this one here y'all gonna get them, so I make copies. So, this is for everybody. You just go to the last page, it'll tell you everything. And,
Why didn't you just print the last page?
well, I should have, but I didn't. I don't know, I don't do this very often, and I shorted y'all one, but that's okay, y'all can share. Uh,
Thank you for the hard work.
Okay, that's for everything. Just go to the last page, that's for everything I got upstairs. And, whenever I presented it last year, Stephen told me to go do whatever I needed to do, so.
Was it nice?
I don't know, I did like to say it.
Okay.
So, but, I also have I got 4 of them altogether. One is, but the 2 that I am most, well, there's really 3. I know that's $5 million for that. So, the ones that, this one here, y'all just pass it around. That one there is $2,278,000. And I have it written on the back. It's not a full preservation. It is just pre-preservation of the files, but full preservation of the old books that I have in my box. This one here is $2,581,4975. This is full preservation of all the old documents and the old books. This one is. Yes. And then this one is only $987,735.39. Now with this one, it's gonna be me pulling the files, and it's gonna be me pulling the files, putting them in folders, putting those folders in a box for them to be shipped, and they are only gonna be, the case files will only be what they call pre-preserved. They won't be, they'll put, I think he describes it as a pre-preservation page, a stabilization and rehousing in an acid-free folder and in boxes, is what that is. This is probably gonna be more to your liking, and that's okay, but with that comes, the cost of the boxes, the cost of the folders, and a cost of a couple of part-time people to do that. And I don't know how much, but that bid is good for now. Come, I think next May, they're gonna add inflation to it. And it's gonna be probably double that. And we can keep that in place we can start out with a certain amount and then finish it off at like a noted out, so to speak. So it all depends on what you want to do and how much we get at one time. And then I would like to have a certain amount given each year until we've met that bid. I want to try to keep that bid in place because it's going to be higher after that. But I'm just concerned about the old ones. The old ones are, they're really getting, and I've got to have some room anyway. The guys from Austin that come in, they was looking upstairs and we went into one of the rooms up there and that guy walked in there and he said, "Oh my God, why aren't you digitizing?" And I said, "I'm trying." And he said, "All these records are gonna have to leave." Well, of course, I just sort of looked at him. But I talked around, talked to artists, and I think they have found a place where we'd be able to put those records. And where I don't think it's gonna cost us anything to store them. I just gotta go up there and look at it. So when they move them, then, I gotta have a place to do that if that's what y'all, what y'all decide. It's just on what you decide. With that cost comes the cost of folders and some part-time people and my budget will have to reflect those people, to do that until I can get them. And I'm just worried about the old ones. I'm not worried about the ones from 51 forward. We're getting them scanned in. In fact, we're starting upstairs now on scanning in. We're gonna start from 51 forward. So the girls are making some headway there. We've only been at it about 6 months. Oh, well, since the first of this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money and y'all are gonna do what you can do. And I just want to be able to keep this and, if you give me 500,000, give me 100,000 the next 4 years to finish it off. I mean, that's just how I look at it. I don't know what you're gonna give me, but that's an idea I'm looking at. And that's not the cost of the part-time people. So, I'm gonna have to put them in a room with a fan, because some of that stuff is dusty. And I get up there and I start coughing just getting up there. But if I bring them down and put them in my office and have some fan circulation, they're good. So, I'll do whatever I have to do to get them conserved. So, I'm just looking and seeing what y'all want to do.
Just a comment for the court. If we had reserves or contingency or capacity to be able to provide for what she's suggesting, that we could consider of an additional 500,000 and then budget for 100,000, it may be an easier bite. Obviously, the adjustment is going to come with the personnel. And if I heard you correct, you're thinking 2, and then the supplies that go along with that. And if you did part-time personnel, if you're doing a 4-day work week type schedule at 7 hours per day per person, that would give you less than an average that would trigger the full-time employment benefits to have to be offered to that individual. Of course, you'd have to figure out an hourly rate for that.
Yeah.
But what I heard you say is an initial, basically, deposit of $500,000 into this project, and then the remaining funding over the following 4 years.
Yeah, if I had to ask that, I'd tell you right up front, I'd want $2 million. That would help alleviate a lot. But we live in reality. So that was what I would wish for, but I know what that is. So, it doesn't matter to me, just give me something to start with and let's get moving on it. As far as, I'll come back with something on that. Jackie knows about what that is, I'll get with her to get that. I don't know what the cost of the boxes and the folders are gonna be, so I'll have to add that too.
Is there a records retention account and fee and so forth that generates any revenue to offset any of this?
No, in the district clerk world, at one time, we had the district clerk's RMP, but at $5 a pop, it was $5. I could do that all year long, and I might be lucky if I could get 65,000 out of that, maybe. But I think it all went together. I just don't know, I don't know where that went to, because I know Melissa did it, we've looked at it ever since then. But I do have a district clerk's fund. Don't know where it come from, there's a little bit left in it. If I have to use that, I will. But I was sort of saving it for, if I had to preserve some books like Don Easton's had to do, they're about $5,000 a book. And I thought about using that money for that. And, you know, the district clerk just don't make, you know, they don't have land needs and that kind of stuff to make money. So so we're virtually just depending on the commissioner's court to give them what they can.
Sure.
So, and I know Dominique has, you know, we have separate accounts. I think we share an account somewhere.
There's,
don't
county records management for every department.
we? Yeah. And other than that, I don't really have anything, so, you know. There's no grants out there. There's not the district clerk don't have what do they call these type of funds that the state will,
Discretionary fund.
yeah, and no, we don't have none of that. So, it's like I said, we virtually just depending on whatever y'all can give us, so, yeah.
Is this required by law to preserve these?
Yes, it's as what Mr. Blacksher said, an unfunded mandate. And the way that I've looked at it is nobody has tried to do it before, because it's like I said, it depends on y'all. And, the mentality was, well, they're not gonna give you what I asked for. Well, I just don't think that, I can't do that anymore because I don't have no more room to put things. We're stacking recording books on the floor now in the vault. The first priority are the older books that, you know, that once they're taken care of, they'll come out. But I don't have anywhere else to put them.
And these numbers, you for sure don't have to go through the procurement process.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not a contract or anything.
Right, no, but, yeah, but we're gonna have to go out for bids and all of that, but we do have some information for sure on how much that's gonna cost. So the big number, what,
The $5 million number.
so that covered up until 1951?
No, I think that will go to preserving all of the 1850 backwards and digitizing everything forward that I haven't got to.
Imaging and case filing indexing through 1950 forward.
And then we can
Everything
just-
indexed 51 forward.
Yes.
But that's,
But the only thing that's being preserved is from 1950 backwards. 1951 forward, it is, left up to my discretion to keep them. I don't know that I can keep them because I don't have more room. The only thing that I am by, and it's really not by law, it's at my discretion, is if a case that is from 1951 forward, if it has any type of historical value to the county, I keep it. But outside of that, I don't think there's anything else really other than the attachment to the paper. And that's a big thing. I'm very much attached to paper. So, it's just the nature of,
County industry,
Yes.
it's timber, so.
yeah, I have the young people that are in my office, why do you want to keep this? You might need it, oh no, we got it right here, everything we need is right in this little electronic thing. And, they're good with that, they have night to watch them. You know, they love a shredder. So, yeah, but those files are eventually, they're gonna have to leave. Because like I said, you can only put so much paper, unless y'all wanna find me a good storage place, they gotta go. And I hate that. And I don't know how long I will hang on to them before I let them go.
Okay, comments or questions for Renee? Anybody? All right, we've been handed the salary and allowance schedule. Let's,
Judge,
hey,
I didn't realize this day was the day to turn the thing in, and so but I have a request, please.
Okay.
I would like to, once again, ask the court for a full-time employee in my office. I think that
dedicated to that department and the HR side of it. As of now, the two of us are bouncing back and forth from each of our functions, doing our best, but not feeling as though we are focusing as much of the HR side of things as we should be. Originally, when the HR and payroll functions were moved to the treasurer's office, they were supposed to come to an employee. Another issue that I believe is that it's not wise to have random part-time people in the treasurer's office where the county's money is being brought to. Not that I think that anyone did anything illegal, but I do think that it leaves the door for extra errors. I would seriously like not to take that risk. Not having additional training consistently scheduled employee makes things very difficult when either of us have to be out, and that is how we do this. I just think when we're dealing with our county's money, trained, bonded employees, full-time scheduled employees, is always the better option to go. So I've asked almost every year, so I'm asking one more time. I would also like to ask for an increase in my training and education budget due to the increase in the IRS per diem allotments, $1,000, and office supplies, $500. The increase is due to, cost of file folders for personal records is anywhere between $59 and $79. So, we change those as well. That's it. It's not $2 million, but it is what I need.
Just to review, so the one full-time position, and then also training budget, and that was $1,500, the 1,000 and the 500?
Increase $1,000, and then office supplies $500.
Okay, a total of $1,500 on that side of it, true?
Sir?
A total of $1,500 on that side of it.
Yes.
Okay, good. Comments or questions for the treasurer? Okay, thank you. All right.
I put the salary schedule in front of you, just when you asked Stephen how many positions, how many total, so you can see what each department has.
How many total full-time employees do you manage payroll for?
Somewhere around 110.
110? Okay, that includes officials too, though, right? Okay. And then a rough estimate of part-time positions?
15, 20, depending on how many might put out there in that seasonal crew that I don't know.
Okay.
They get the thing out of that.
Yeah.
All righty. Okay, any additional comments or questions for this portion of our discussion? All right. Gentlemen, that's all the agenda identifies. Is there anything other from anyone that's present who wants to speak to the court, Lynette? Okay.
May I add something there? I didn't think about this when I was adding all this up, but on our travel expense, I know that this year's conference is gonna be in McAllen, and, so that's quite a trip. So if y'all can manage a few extra dollars in that part of my budget anyway. And I don't mind asking for the girls, whatever you can give them. I like Leanne's plan. I just asked for a whole lot, so. Just that.
Okay. Speaking of Leanne's plan, is this something that we want to have a conversation about now? Are you prepared to have a conversation about that? But you're on a time schedule though, aren't you?
No, sir, I work with the county.
Okay,
I'm here before 30.
all right. Okay, anything?
And there's also been, a proposal across the board,
$2,000 across the board. That's what I want to do.
Okay,
and I have a number of other
So, crunched
I forgot to give it to you.
numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. And from the HR side of things, and from talking to just different people, not really anything official, just a little bit of research here and there, and from what I've seen, and what I've heard from people coming into my office, there are a couple of things that the employees, they're concerned about. One of those is that, we have employees that have worked for our county for numerous years that, make the same amount of money as somebody who's worked here for 2 or 3 years. That's a big deal to some of our people. The other part of it is that, and of course, there's no differentiating in between the money. We're not being paid for the experience. And if you look at it and you see how much money that our county has invested in our people, then I think that, to look at the step pay increase proposal, you're investing in keeping those people that we've already invested this kind of money in. If you take Dean or if you take Melissa, for an example, we send them to school, they have to have their continuing education, we make sure they can do the things that Dean that Donnie's and Lynette can't, if they're not in the picture, that they can step right in and do those things, and that's a lot of years of experience that they have under their belt. And so this plan is comprised of considering the experience that these people have. Talked to Stephen, and Stephen said, because I tied it for simplicity to years of experience. He didn't necessarily like the years of experience because he said it was the same thing as longevity. I didn't agree necessarily with that. I just thought that for simplicity's sake, that it would save time and effort. So I went back and I added years of experience plus actual job descriptions and actual experience within the jobs. And so I took some descriptions to Lynette, to Lynette and to Renee and to Donnie's that had them kind of look at it and see if that would kind of work in the levels of experience, and they all said that it probably would. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go to y'all and say, this is what your maintainer guy should do or whatever, but there's that kind of thing that Stephen would like to see based on experience. But what I did was I broke it down into the first plan, broke it down into years of experience based off of a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have an entry level. Now, each one of these experience levels is tied to years of experience because, Stephen, a lot of times when you go and apply for a job, a lot of times they will say, must have 5 years experience in X, Y, and Z, plus all the other criteria. And that's the way these are written. So the first level is written in that same manner with a 5-year experience in the particular office that you're working in. And at that particular level, we start out with a $50, there's one at 50 and there's one at 75. And then we start out at a $75 increase and $75 per pay period, $26 week bi-weekly pay period. And it turns out to be a $1,300 increase. And so then it goes from there on to the next level would be a 10-year, and then it takes you to a 1,950, then to a 15-year experience of not longevity, but actual experience tied into a list, a job description of experience. And then it takes you to a 3,250, then a 3,900, a 5,200, and then a 6,500. When you get to 25 years, it maxes out. Because typically what you're going to see is at 25 to 30 years, unless you're Donnie's and you look at Energizer Bunny and Lynette, you just work forever. You just don't stop. And so, with the exception of these 2 ladies, most people retire at 25 or 30 years, and that's been the experience that we have. So the plan is to stagger out, to actually step the raises, so that it doesn't have an impact into our budget all at one time. And if you did that, and you actually paid the increase, or paid the raise, the step salary increase, for the experience that you have in the current position that you're in, then you're looking at an impact to the budget for the first 2023 budget of $205,000. And then you're gonna put the rest of the raise on what is almost like a low again. 2024, you're gonna see a 15,600 raise. 2025, you're gonna see a 25,350 raise. 2026, a $27,950 raise. And it goes on from there. The point of this raise is, or this step plan is, A, it takes the guesswork out of it. B, our people are not guessing whether or not it's gonna be another 5 or 6 or 7 years before we get another across the board raise. I like the idea of across the board raise, with the exception of, when do we budget another one? When can you tell me, or when can you tell the employees that we're gonna have another one? And that's the problem. Because the economy goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and there's nothing that we are doing as a county from the investment side of things, and that's the way I see things, to prepare for the next rate, or the next increase, or the next whatever it is that our people can plan on. And so in my mind, what we're doing is we're taking the increase that we want to give to our people and spreading it out over time, based on their experience. And so that's what we did. And so what it does is it gives this schedule from this point on of experience, of an amount. The amount is discussed, debatable. The time is debatable. I looked at taking it down from starting out at 75 down to 50. I looked at taking the time from 5 years to 3 years until you get to 12, and taking it to 4 years. There's different variables, but the point is that I think that the conversation needs to be had in a plan some sort of this manner, because it does budget for future years' worth of raises. And it doesn't just say, here you go, here's a raise, because it doesn't solve the problem that our people are still not seeing the difference in the entry level position versus the experience level position of 15 to 20 years. And that has been the complaint all the way around the board, in that there's no difference in somebody walking in off the street on our side of it anyway. So, any questions?
You have the person 1 and 2 on this. I didn't get it. It's not in mine.
She handed it out, huh? Is it in the book?
No, not the book I did, it's the one she did for you.
It's in.
This is the updated one I got from the other day.
You want to pass it down?
But when you constantly have those increases over the years, I mean, that's constantly looking at raising taxes there too to pay for that.
But you would have a fixed amount. So you would know at your fixed amount what it's going to be.
But we don't even know if next year we don't have to start letting the employees go.
True. But I think that's with anything, right? I mean, and then obviously with anything, we have that clause, a lot of any benefit or any perk that we've ever given that says at the discretion of court and depending on the budgetary needs. I mean,
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I'm just saying that with any benefit we've ever given, we have that clause at the bottom. But I think if we had a projection of something, a set rate, a set amount, a set idea of where we're gonna go, and a minimal impact from this amount. I mean, we're looking at a certain rate amount, a budgetary hit at this year, close to what the budgetary hit is gonna be already. Based on that amount there, or close to that, I mean, in my mind, we're building in this raise for future years for this incentive that says to the employee, hey, when I'm hired on, because right now when somebody comes in our office and they say, well, how often do I get a raise? None of us can say anything. None of us can know. I realize it's the nature of the job and the nature of the industry that we're in. But it would be really nice to say, well, it's projected that every 5 years or every 3 to 4 years, we have it planned to do so. But just like anything else, when we come in here and we work every year to work out the budget, every year, everything's up on the table. everything is reviewable, everything is, all of our benefits are negotiable at that point. And if it's a set number, I think that it's definitely easier to work with a set number versus a variable. And your variable is your number of years in between, your variable is the number of, I mean, there's just a lot of variables where this is just a fixed amount. And then also you have to take into consideration too, that's a high number. We have a lot of employees that may or may not run again. We have our officials that may or may not run again. A lot of employees that have been here 20 plus years that may or may not retire at the end of the year or the next year or before the next increment of raise. So that money's gonna come back into the pool.
I know we've been working on it 15 years and I know trying to figure out a way to do it.
And I understand that, I totally get it, but if you look at things and you see things on this side of it, and I'm just gonna, y'all see things from one side of it, and then I see things from a different side. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but sometimes it just comes across as
Go ahead, say it, Lee.
well, I'm trying to.
We're big boys, we can
I
take it.
know, and it's not anything you haven't already heard, but when you're clerical side of things, there's just this bottom line over here, and then there's no separation in things, there's no separation in the experience or the amount of money that we've invested in these women or these men. There's no difference in the levels of experience or whatever they've invested in themselves into our county. And then you've got these women they're doing everything that they have, spent all these years here. And I know of 2 or 3 of them right now who are single breadwinners for their family, and they had to borrow money. They had to borrow money to buy gas to get here, to get to work, and have worked here for 15 plus years. And an across the board raise isn't going to help them in the future.
Say that again, across the board raise what?
It's not gonna help them in the future.
I mean, it'll help them right now, but I mean, we all know. I mean, when was the last time we got a raise? When was the
4
last?
years ago.
4 years ago. And so if it's 4 years, and a lot has happened with our economy, and a lot has happened with the administration that is in place right now. And half of that $2,000 is going to eat up in taxes. We're
Can I
going to
say
say,
something when you're done? Just want to interject that, if you don't mind. 32 years I've been here, and first 22 was with the sheriff's office, and I made the exact same amount as James Lee Chapter. Been that way for 32 years. You've got to start somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be $1,000, I don't know if it's going to be $3,000, I don't know if it's going to be $5,000. But for 32 years, I have made the exact same, and somebody who went off the street has made the exact same that I did at 10 years. It's not right. It's just not right. And like she said, you can visit this every year. If it's not there, it's not there. There's nothing you can do about it if it's not there the following year. You know, I'm at 32 years. I've been retired here in whatever, 3 or 4 years. Whatever I get, that's going to go back in the pot. And somebody else is not going to get that amount. So you got to kind of, it goes back and forth. But you've got to start somewhere.
That's where they started with that longevity about 20 years ago.
But
And I know it's not significant to somebody that's got 5 years.
Oh, no, it's significant to me.
It is to me
Because I've been
too.
here for 32.
I've been here
But for
26.
somebody, yeah, so for somebody that's been here for 10 years, it's just not, there's no, okay, you're not paying for my work.
But y'all gotta understand, just giving a straight across the board $2,000 raise the employee is gonna see about $27 in pay period. They're not gonna see much out of it, but the county's just, we're gonna have to spend the money for the whole amount. So if we start trying to budget money every year to give these, just continue these step raises, I mean, where are we gonna be in 10 years?
Well, I can't tell you that.
I know where we won't be. We won't be up here.
But I can just tell you from that perspective. But, I
I mean, y'all just gotta
Right.
remember, we're asking our taxpayers to pay this. I mean, that's the whole
Yes,
thing.
and I'm a taxpayer.
I am too.
You know, we all are taxpayers.
I understand.
And our taxpayers, some of them get raises. I don't say all of
Some
them,
of them don't.
but some, that's right.
Some of them live on fixed income, way less
But
than
some of
what
the
we pay.
fixed incomes people have got theirs, their homestead done, you know, but I mean, it's,
Maybe the amounts that we have, that I've got here, and this is where the conversation has, and I know that the taxpayers are responsible for this, but again, so that's me, talking to me. And I'm not asking for anything that I don't think is unrealistic, because I looked at this isn't something that just come out of the clouds. This is something that almost every other county does, this is something that state agencies do, this is something that other agencies do. This is a proven thing. And so maybe it's not the amount of money that I have figured in here that we need to look at. Maybe that needs to be tweaked. Maybe the time, but it is worth looking at. And it is worth looking at every year. It is worth looking at. If you said it's going to, we've been looking at 15
Well, I'm not
years.
saying it's not, I'm not trying to argue at that point.
You know,
I don't like giving partial people raises and not giving the other people raises, because it don't matter, you're gonna make somebody mad regardless.
well,
That's why I like straight across the board, everybody gets the same money, we're not doing a percentage, so we're not getting more money than a clerk. Everybody's getting the same amount of raises. I know it don't give it no in between, you know, you
That's-
make more.
My experience is, you're not gonna make everybody happy. You're gonna make somebody mad. But I know for a fact, if we adopt this, that I see one,
We're gonna
two,
have people leave.
3 people. Okay, but so.
wait a minute, I'm not through, that don't get anything until 2024 and 2025. And I mean,
They won't stay.
they'll be devastated. I mean, I understand but then I got this one guy that's gonna get $5,000. I mean, it'll just be chaos as far as my crew is concerned.
Okay, so again, though, the money can be looked at, and the money can be reviewed, and the amounts can be reviewed, and the time can be reviewed. But what I'm telling you is, I don't think that you ought to get hired one day, and the next day get a raise. And I also don't think that you ought to get hired one day and make the same amount with the 30-year-old experienced employee ought to make either. And what I'm also saying though, is that, yeah, you're gonna make somebody mad all the way around. But what about all the people that you've made mad all these years that have stayed anyhow?
That is.
Well, I mean.
But I mean, I disagree though there on like, and I'm not being ugly to nobody, but okay, I've got a 20-year-old guy that is an operator. That's the way it's set up. He gets on the grader, he goes and does what a guy that's been doing it for 25 years. He's sitting out there doing the same job. So should he be penalized just because he's young if he could do the job? I mean, that's what I hired him for. He went and he drives a truck, the nature of the job does not change with your age, is what I'm saying. So do we penalize people for being young?
It's not the age, it's the experience. It's the experience, it's not his age. If I said age.
Well, even that though, I mean, if,
The longevity covers some of that. I mean, I know it's not significant, but that was done
But,
to separate that.
I mean, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought longevity was a benefit and at any moment can be taken away.
well, anything.
Anything that's made.
Okay, so then it's the same thing. If a benefit is a benefit is a benefit, then.
So do we do away with longevity and do this?
No, that's not what I'm saying, because this is completely different.
So Joe has only been commissioner for 2 years, so he wouldn't get anything
no.
because it's
In
not longevity.
2023,
it's not longevity. So but even though he'd been working for the county for 15 years, he came to a new position, he wouldn't get anything. Renee wouldn't get anything, even though she's been working in that office. Because it's experience, because they hadn't had any experiences at these elected positions.
It depends on how we write the,
Well,
Depends
how do you have it written up?
How do
So
I
it's
have it
not
written?
it's not longevity, it's not years of experience.
here's the way I have it written. I have it written at two things. First, the pay, but goes, at some point, you have to let your official have some discretion to the employees that is there. At some point, there has to be some discretion. And right now, we don't have any. We have a formula that we stick by, and that's all there is to it. Period. And we have no discretion to give anybody anything anywhere in between. So in my mind, where there's some discretion in there. Secondly, there's also discretion if you come, Joe, you got 15 years and you come and you promoted within your department, to me, that's experience. Renee, if you come up within your department and you got elected in your department, that's experience. If I come from the treasurer's office and I decide I'm gonna go be at the sheriff's office and be a dispatcher, I do not have experience in that and I should get nothing.
So, but not, if you come from a different, say we come from Hardin County Sheriff's Office with 25 years experience on deputy, and he comes to there, would you
And that should
qualify?
be the official's discretion. Because the official
So
will know
that's
what,
it, that's experience.
the
So,
official will know what experience he's going to require within his office and what is going to be pertinent, because like Donnie said, somebody coming from the district or the county clerks over in Jasper County may only have spent, because their office is a lot larger, may only have spent their 10 years doing one thing. But when you get over here to this county office, you're going to spend your 10 years doing everything. So you may not have any experience over there that you've had over here.
so how do
You
you
can't
set a budget? In, just take the sheriff's budget, if you set a budget for what's there now, they all quit, and he hires 10 new deputies with 25 years experience. He doesn't have enough money to pay them that step.
And he will look at that and say, you know what? This is the money that I have, and this is what I can pay you when you come in here. That's, I mean,
So,
if
but,
at the
but,
end of the month you got $10,
but
you're
you're
gonna buy
not giving them
$10
their
bread.
experience, they're doing the exact same job from county to county, same job, but if it's experience pay, why aren't they getting that experience pay?
Because it's up to the official's discretion. And if the official hires somebody with that kind of experience, then he needs to make sure that he has the money in his budget to do so.
But is it also, I mean, if I have somebody come over here and been working in the sheriff's office at another county for 25 years, and he wants to come over here and my budget says this is what you're gonna get, and he decides to accept it, and he's happy with it, I'm saying, well, come on board, bud, I'm taking to that.
It's the same thing as they come to that.
But within the next 5 years, if he's here 5 years, he's gonna get a step up.
But the difference is, Stephen, we're not rewarding the people who've not been here.
Okay, you're talking here,
Rewarding
you're
the
talking,
people who have worked.
are
and
you talking
dedicated.
about experience in Tyler County or experience in?
I'm talking about rewarding the people who have experience within our county, who are dedicated.
So that's longevity, that's how long they've been working here.
No,
If you're not counting people from doing the exact same job coming in, that's not experience. It's not experience pay.
it is experience within the department that you were working. It is experience. Because, I mean,
But you don't have to pay them. So it's not experience pay. So some people can get it, two people can come into the sheriff's office both with 25 years. He said, I'm not gonna pay you the 25 years, but I'm gonna pay you the 25 years.
it's the official's discretion. Or it ought to be.
Yeah, that's gonna cause a whole lot of problems when you go to do the discretion. When my employees, I decide not to pay him a certain amount, and Buck decides he's gonna pay his that much,
Well,
then they're not gonna be too happy.
truly, there is, or we don't have to pay everybody the same thing, and that's the truth, and that is really a thing. And we don't have to give everybody the same thing, and that really is the thing. But my biggest issue, and most everybody's on this side that I talk to, issue is that there is no difference. I mean, we've got this longevity thing. Not everybody gets longevity when they first get here. So I mean, we're gonna give people who And we're doing the same thing that you're talking that's not right, because the people who've been here less than 3 years are gonna get a raise, we're gonna get this raise. And it's exactly what you're saying is wrong in my opinion. So they're gonna get this raise. So everybody's gonna get it, but we're not paying for experience because that's what longevity is. And then we're not showing any difference between the people who have been here for decades. And we're not building in any kind of plan for future raises. And that's the thing. Because it would be really beneficial, I think, to the county as a whole, if we said, you know what, we've got, I don't know if we need to take a certain amount of money, put it in investment, and say, we're gonna grow this money over here, and this is what we're gonna kind of look at for raises, or, I really don't know the wherewithal or what we're doing, but at some point, like Trish said, we've got to start somewhere where we're looking at something, I mean, our economy is only getting worse. And so if our people are having to borrow money from their savings to buy their gas to get here, if we get a $2,000 raise now, then what are we gonna tell them for next year? What are we gonna tell them for the next year?
And I had one last week that told me that very thing. He borrowed money out of his savings to buy gas.
So what are we gonna tell them about?
I don't know, but I know you can't compare apples to oranges. Hardin County, you know, is probably the one that Tyler County interacts with the most. They have given about a 3% raise every year, and this year it's 5%. You know, the judge figured it in there, he brought the commissioner's court, he threw it out there, and they passed it. But I know we don't have the same tax base that Hardin County does. They've got Southampton, they have other industries. We are basically relying on property taxes and what few little businesses we have there. But you have to start somewhere. This is just buck talking. I think that you need to give them something every year. I mean, because face it, you know, I mean, I went and bought this pump a while ago at Sonic. It was $3.50. Because I went through the drive-thru. I should have used my app. But anyway, you know what she told me? I looked at her and I said, $3.50? Are you kidding? And she goes, don't pick on me. I don't set the prices. You know, she got all upset. And I told her it's okay. I wasn't messing with her. She said Thursday they're going up again.
Go buy you a 2-liter, just buy some ice.
But I mean, you know, and then I know a $2,000 raise across the board is, it ain't gonna help nobody that much, but it's a start.
It's like you said, we're not as big as these other counties. We're small. We don't have a huge tax base.
Mm-mm.
So whatever you do is gonna be small.
Right.
These are numbers that she has thrown out there, but they're not numbers that we can afford, maybe, if you wanna say that. But there has to be. My gas bill this year, didn't really feel the punch of it until about 2 months ago. It run about $250 a month, and it jumped up to over $600. I looked over at Dwayne and said, I can't pay the bill. I can pay I've been able to pay what I make, pay our gas bill for what he does and what I do, for the running that we do. And I looked over at him and I said, mine's only $254, yours is $312. And so he said, well, I said, we'll do half.
That's significant.
We'll have it. He has to pay half, I have to pay half. And I know I'm not the only person doing that. And I know y'all, oh my God, I can only imagine what y'all's equipment is.
Well, we've already-
Diesel being more,
Fuel budget.
you know? We have to operate within what Tyler County can do.
Mhm.
I love these outside counties and it's nice, but we don't have that.
But isn't a $2,000, if I'm correct, isn't a $2,000 raise about 5%?
Depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah, they have been.
Depends on whose salary you're talking about.
Either way, it's gonna be around
Average,
3
probably.
cents for raises.
It's what?
It's gonna be around 3 cents.
On the rate.
On the rate, yeah.
On the rate.
May I say something?
Sure.
Y'all are waiting for this?
Yes,
So here's the way I explained
we
it to the
close at
kids.
4:30.
Well, you've already heard it. This is the way I explained it to the kids in the summer work program. The inflation is 9% for all of us. When you went to McDonald's today, cheese had gone up, bread had gone up, hamburger meat had gone up, and you paid it. Because that's what you're buying, and they had to go up on it, because they're also raising those people's salaries in order to keep them there. Collier County is a business, and we provide services to this community, and I think we forget that sometimes. And I do see both sides of it, because I see for 30 years what y'all done.
You've been in here the whole time.
Every year I come in here and I watch. And I know that when people pay taxes, they don't want their taxes to go up. I don't want to have to pay more. I don't want to pay, we went through the drive-through of McDonald's the other day with our grandkids and it was $57. How in the world can you spend $57 at McDonald's? But you know what, they provide a service and I want it. So if I needed a marriage license or a death certificate or a whatever all those things are the clerk's office does, whatever all the district clerk's office does, if I need law enforcement, I'm gonna need for law enforcement to come and I'm gonna wanna pay for it. So no one wants their taxes to go up, but I want people to remember, this is, we're providing services to the people in the community. And even though they don't wanna have to pay more for it, they're paying more for everything else. And so I realize it's difficult because y'all are having to protect both sides of it. But it's not like we're asking for more money for nothing. We are, just like Renee just said, gasoline, well, nobody in this room has to be told when you go to Walmart, when you used to spend $100, now you spend $200. So, but I do think it's important to show our employees, I've always said this, I think it's important to show them the value that we feel like they are serving our community in a lot of different ways, and you'll all know, everybody in this room does a ton of stuff
Can I
for the
say
people
something?
in the community. So, and I told those kids that, I preach every summer to those kids in the work program about taxes. Don't learn, go home and tell your mamas, you're getting value though from the county, you're getting value from doing business in our county. So when they start talking about they got a raise and our taxes went up, remind them, y'all seen it all over this county, you've worked in all these offices and you see what everybody's doing. So I'm just saying, don't forget that the people I think out there appreciate what the county employees are doing in their business for the county. That's what I think.
And so you look at whatever raise we give to people for salaries, actual money in their hands, the vast majority of those people are going to turn around and spend every dollar that we gave them. And they're not going to save it because it's just the way that some of us are, most of us are. So that money is going to be turned over 7 times, and every time it gets turned over, it gets taxed on sales tax and anything else. So money we put out there as in salaries, however we decide to do it, realize that that money gets turned back over back into the community, not only in sales, in profit for the business owner, but in taxes and sales tax and other ways, liquor tax, a lot of them go to liquor tax. But that falls back into the coffers of the county to come back around. And they say it's taxed. For every dollar we put out, it's taxed 7 times.
And I don't think the question is, our people aren't worth it. Our people are definitely worth it, raise. But like you said, there's a balance there, because we're elected. Come on, Steve. But they are, and but Leanne, I see how that, the step, how it would all, but the initial impact would be a lot more than what I'd be willing to look at, but I see how it would work and maybe it's like, maybe we could look at doing something on longevity side, where it's not such a significant hit.
I would like to say this, and I'm Jackie to say something. The money, this is just a preliminary thing. The money is adjustable. But this is proven. This is proven by all other counties. This is proven by other areas. It's designed so that it's not a massive hit every year. It's designed so that everybody knows that they're appreciated. Because I'm telling you, you're right, Stephen, the average person is gonna put it in a savings account. The average person is going to go spend every dollar.
They're gonna need it.
Because they're going to need now, they are going to need every dollar. And so every benefit that we give them, every time we say, I appreciate you, every time you do, this is what they need. And you all know that. You know it just as well as I do. This is, I'm telling you, something to take a minute to look at. And I know that you're saying that the people who've been here 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 years or whatever, it's going to be bad. Then figure out a way to help them. There's a merit issue in there, we can do something to help. But we have to start somewhere in planning for next year, so that it's not a huge hit every time. That we
And,
get somebody
like I said, I think maybe there,
I'm not
maybe we
about
can
that.
make some adjustments on longevity. I mean,
I'm not about that, because you talk about this.
Do all of our employees get longevity?
only those that are,
After 3 years.
so it's
After their third year.
But every office, I know the adult probation offices, they do not consider county, but they do not get longevity pay. Is there anyone else in the county besides the new employees that don't get longevity pay?
Everyone. The ag agents.
The ag agents.
They're state employees.
So they may get it from the state or something. What about Lucas? Does Lucas get longevity pay?
I don't
Yep.
know.
I think he does it.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't think
No, he doesn't.
Okay, he does it. He does it.
appraisal district, well, they're fixing to get 7% raise.
The appraisal districts, they're not employees, but we just fund
Okay.
$458,000 of their budget, whatever it is, our number on there.
All the schools,
39%.
all the schools in the county too pitch into the appraisal district.
Okay.
There's
And
a
they've
chart.
got to get it approved by all the schools and by the county. So they may or may not get it. Ain't no telling.
But and I think I can speak for everybody up here, that employees are worth it. It's just, you gotta find the balance, I know for me, I've spoken to you, I got a few hiccups. I wish certain departments would be able to get, some raises but it's also gonna cost the taxpayers, and it seems like we're just based off of everything that I've calculated, it seems like we're gonna have some, just covering ourselves some significant increases.
So the appraisal district, we cover 39.003% of their salary, of their budget, not salary, their budget. It's based on your tax levy. So that's what it's talking about, the Woodville School. Once that bond gets on there, everybody's gonna jump up in top, in front of us, which will bring everybody's values, everybody's assessment percentage will go down once that $43 million bond gets put on there next year.
Except people in the Woodville School District.
Well, this is budget. No, this is what the budget allocation. So when that bond gets on there, Tyler County won't have to pay 39% of it because their levy goes, Woodville School levy goes up, so our 39% will be reduced now. It should be the amount that we're giving, which the estimated this year is $478,553, which is a $48,000 increase from last year. So, I'm sorry about that. You asked about how they funded, how they're doing.
And we've got to take into account, me personally, because I got a lot of my people in y'all too in the precinct, the impact of the 46-cent increase he was talking about for that bond. It's gonna be a lot of increasing on people's taxes already.
Right now, across the board, on all the taxes, property taxes that Connie and I have, it's about 12% of my salary, without the school bond being built.
You know what gets me about that though, that's a very valid point, Joe, I understand that. But how many registered voters were there in the Woodville ISD? And how many people decided that election? And I know that's still very controversial, but where are people at when these decisions are being made? That's just like these 5 people right here sitting up here. We can do whatever Leanne says, we can do whatever somebody else says, but this bench right here changes continually. And what's to say that in a few years, another group of men, they come in here and they redo it all their way. So this county government deal, it's always, it can change. You may get a group of people up here that don't want to support the hospital. They may not want us to have, you just don't know what's gonna happen up here. So you have to do something that fits the time you're in and, help whoever you can help, I guess, and so on. But this is forever changing right here.
Leanne, I want to comment on the work you did. I was skeptical whenever I first got it. I began to dig into it and dig. And there's a lot of work went into it, and I recognize that. And I saw a plan that I've never seen before. And so I can see how initially to begin the base of this transition into something like this, it's going to have a cost to it. And I calculated roughly 3 cents. But I could see over time how if you have employees, as we've got longevity, true, but then based upon experience, and as I've looked across, sheriff, law enforcement is its own entity. Road and bridge is its own entity.
Correct.
And the skill set that you guys need, and the requirements that you have, and then as far as in these road and bridge type of complexions, and then everybody else is in our offices. And so it's like 3 different types of discipline. And I could see how the point that I saw when I read through that was the focus on experience. And how do you address that? We've addressed longevity, but how do you address experience? And it's just a concept. I really think, Sheriff, you're going to have to help the court to understand what you have to have in order to be able to attract as well as retain. And when I saw some of your numbers that you put in there, I saw you're competing in a very limited, restricted marketplace, and this thing is moving, and where, people were available several years ago, they're no longer available. So you're having to compete in that arena. What would it take for you to compete in that arena? Because you got basically 5 different categories that I've observed. You got your patrol, you got jail, you got dispatch, you got security, and then you've taken on bailiff services. And so, there's some uniquenesses within your own discipline, and none of us, I don't think, unless we've spent time in law enforcement, can really understand what you have to have, and maybe a conversation in that arena. Whereas all of these men up here understand what, Mike, you were on those pieces of equipment. Joe, you were on those pieces of equipment in your precinct, so you understand that thing. For the rest of us, what I've observed is we've tried to compare everybody as being equal across the board, and we can't give this one any more than can this one. But yet, even within the clerk's arena, you're going to have a transition from what I've observed. If you were at the district level and then you went over and you jumped into this arena over here, I've just watched to see how unique that each of those transitions. And I think to the point that you brought up is, the experience in that department, for example, is significant because y'all touch so many things that experience gives you the capacity to operate and function and perform at a more efficient and effective manner. You bring a guy in from out of town that he doesn't know where all the bodies are buried and where the landmines are planted, but you attach him to somebody that's been driving these trails for 20 years, and they start showing, all the weaknesses and where, the roads. I mean, that's something that's unique. And how is it that you reward that so that maybe an employee who would say, hey, I'm on a 4-year step pay based upon my experience, or 5-year or 3, or whatever the configuration of that is, then they're saying, hey, I'm going to move up to this next level this next year. Maybe I should hang in here with you. Maybe I should realize that, because I'm going to move into yet still a different level. When I first came on board, Mike, right before you, we gave an across the board 5%. But honestly, I think what the lesson we learned was it wasn't fair, because those of us who were at the upper end of the pay scale got 3 times as much as the ones who were trying to just buy, who were trying to buy gas, who were trying to buy milk, and who were trying to provide for their healthcare needs. So it's across the board, but then that experience. So I just think that there's some merit to the thought process. At the same time, it's a balance, Mike. I think the balance is we're in the service arena, and we're very, very limited. We don't have any competition. So people coming in, service that we're delivering them, if they feel like that they're getting their money's worth, then if we're levying a little bit of an increase for that experience that they had, then they're going to say, hey, they really treated me well. I really, got a response. I was taken care of, because they can't go anywhere else. So I just wanted to share the thought about the work that you did. And I could see, because there was about 8 of them. I didn't bring my notes with me, left them on my desk, but there was about 8 of us, like Mike, who used to be an employee, like Joe, like Stephen, who moved up from, and even Trisha, she was an employee, became an elected official. Well, you transition into a different pay category by virtue of the fact that you move into that. But to say that, I could go into one of the precincts and start operating a piece of equipment and be considered to be equal to the guy that's been doing that for, like I said, 20 years, that's unrealistic. And so I just think that we need to at least appreciate the effort that you put into this. Well, not we, but I want you to know I personally saw a lot of value in just elevating the conversation. And it won't matter, because I'm not going to be, a beneficiary of any of this, regardless of whether you do the percentage across the board.
I don't think you was here when we had the big fallout about our secretaries over there, when all the chief deputy clerks got raised up a $2,000 raise. Well, our secretary didn't get it because they didn't have nobody working under them. They only got $1,000. So I tried to come back the next year and get them that other $1,000 that they didn't get and everybody else did. And damn, you thought we were blowing the courthouse. It was a big ordeal. So again, we just had to blow it off and forget it. So that's what I'm saying. When you start trying to do something for 1 or 2 people, you're going to have the whole damn country mad.
I think that ultimately the goal is for everybody, just at different times.
I think the word for your deal is tweak it.
It doesn't.
Yeah, if we can go back to the ones that's not getting anything on this plan, could get something.
And I'm not opposed to that, Mike. I just think.
This was just
This is just to open the
I've heard you
conversation.
say that 3 or 4 times, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I,
Instead of me getting as much money as I got there, and then I got 2 or 3 people that's not getting anything, I wouldn't feel good. I wouldn't even be able to look at it.
oh, me neither.
well, again, love to have a conversation. I think that it doesn't need to be shut down.
Well, this is my first time to even see that. So,
I emailed it.
yeah, I don't.
To me, the great thing about being
I like paper.
is that you know the next however many years, how much you're gonna budget for, what kind of, you don't have this going on about, can we give a raise? What is it?
Oh, I
You know,
agree.
like,
That
sort of thing. It's already laid out. Of course, the hurdle is the first year, that it's adopted.
But we're looking at the substantial impact anyway. give across.
Right.
Raise,
Yeah.
so get over the hurdle this time, and then from this point on, it's not near as substantial from this point on. Again, though, it's just, it takes some tweaking, and you don't have to call it experience, do you?
Yeah, I'd rather
It's
call it,
not.
I'd rather call it like level 1, 2, 3, and 4, so.
called it level 1, 2,
And then, so that'd be a clerk position 1, clerk position 2.
I did that.
But I really don't think that you can leave that objectivity up to one individual, whether that person qualifies for this. I think it's gonna have to be some written policy of this qualifies for it, and if employee thinks that they should qualify, if person hiring them said, no, this doesn't qualify, then we go back to court or whoever does that. But we have to take care of our people that are here for 1 year, too, because they're buying the same milk and gasoline that we are.
Exactly.
And not that we can't use that program, but we have to make sure we
That's
cover
what,
it.
that was my whole thing. I didn't want some people not to get nothing.
And that's when I said, we need to have some sort of discretionary, your official needs to be able to say, okay, this is what I want to do, this is where I need to start from, this is what my hand that just, I hired on, he's been here a year, he's been great. Your guy that you got going on, or maybe he's been here a year and a half, and he is, I mean, he's just great. I need some money in my budget so I can make sure that he's taken care of too, not just whatever, and then he starts his program at such and such, or whatever. And I just think that it's workable.
Yeah.
But I think we're gonna have to go.
Yeah, it needs to be-
Like the discretionary, where he can pay his.
No, it can't be
I
that
don't
way.
like the discretionary.
It has to be that Stephen, Joe, Mike, and myself would all give the 1 year guy the same amount.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't like the discretionary.
Okay, take out discretionary.
And yeah, it needs to be standard.
Just forget
In
that.
my-
Discretionary, because that's.
You can give the sheriff discretionary.
But the judge brought up a good thing about when they gave a 5% across the board, which is treating everybody the same, but it was not fair to everyone.
Another thing I
So
would
you
say.
got
Disparaging,
Yeah,
because
so
what you've done is you've raised the floor on those who are at the upper level more significantly than anybody else.
So
They
you
are benefiting the most.
gotta be careful
Once
that
I
we treat
saw that
everybody
after,
fairly.
you know, we implemented that, and I started looking at the check and realizing that the staff person, well, gosh, you know, they got $1,000, I got $3,000. Well,
So,
you know,
Mike,
if we keep doing that,
Yeah.
you know, it's just gonna continue to go the gap.
Yeah.
one of the options
Up to
here
35,000.
was pull the officials
But then
out
you
of something
Yeah.
and do a separate
That was out.
review of them and see what, okay, so the officials are outside of this. Because it has a very, and they're retained. So then-
Okay, Jackie, don't leave. I mean, on your date stuff, we have to do something today, right? Don't we have to?
No,
Well, we got it set up for Thursday.
what we can do, Bud, is on our workshop, is we can.
I know we can't vote on
What
it.
we can recess until tomorrow, let everybody go home and look at the numbers, figure out what they come back tomorrow after lunch or whatever, and continue on with our workshop until we get to a point of everybody's good with some numbers that we're gonna put on for Thursday. Because if we close out our workshop, we can't come back.
Okay.
But we can recess and come back and talk to them.
Y'all wanna come back at 8:30?
No,
It'll be tomorrow after lunch before I get later. I got there.
That wasn't me, I did schedule it,
But that was not me. What about 1 o'clock? Everybody good with 1 o'clock tomorrow? After
that's
lunch?
fine with me.
Connie,
I ain't right now, but I thought it won't be at 12:30 tomorrow.
Won't be at 12:30?
I won't be, I said, I'm all right with it right now, but I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
I do have a meeting.
As long as we don't have to hear you cry.
Well, I mean,
I have a
we
meeting.
basically have gone through most of it. I mean, we just gotta do some tweaking.
Yes, yeah, we gotta come back and look
We
at
gotta
the
do some
numbers.
crunching.
Yeah, and that's what we can do tonight, is on the numbers and come back. Go from there. You good with that, too? I make a motion to recess until tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Okay, there's a motion to recess, followed by a second.
Who's second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we'll stand in recess until.
I got ahead of it.
Until 1
Until what time?
But you know, and I.
6:30. Get there at 6:30 in the morning.
I go through this.